And it is my distinct pleasure to welcome each and every one of you to this spring 2012 Distinguished Lecture Series on the topic of the United States challenge, energy challenge, and what lies ahead. This topic is, of course, important to this region and to the state, and it is absolutely imperative and ultimately very relevant to the people, all the people in this country, and also around the globe. Presented semi-annually, these lecture series look into what the Engineering Academy characterized as the grand challenges of this day and age. And the purpose is to posture this college, our college, to be more responsive to the regional needs and be effective partners for the industry and the community around us. To welcome you, we have here with us the president of the California State University, Dr. F. King Alexander. He needs no introduction. Trust me, he is well known around the nation and definitely within the state for his advocacy for higher education and education policies. Please welcome President King Alexander.
Thank you, Forouzan. Thank you, Dean Golshani, and welcome to our campus. For many that haven't been here in a while, please stick around and tour and see all the new facilities we've been able to put up. I'd also like to share with you the importance of our engineering, College of Engineering. We graduate about 900 engineers a year. And one reason our mid-career earnings rank among the best universities in America is because of our engineers and what they've gone on to do with their lives and what they've gone on to do in their careers. So we couldn't be more proud of our College of Engineering, what it has accomplished throughout our history. I tease my colleagues at the University of Oregon and University of Georgia. I ask them how many engineers are they graduating, and both institutions together graduate 0 engineers. So it is with great pride that I can ask them that question. And it's great pride that we can showcase so much of what goes on in our College of Engineering, showcase what it accomplishes. I saw many of our students down at the Grand Prix with some of our cars. Are any of our students that were at the Grand Prix with our vehicles in the convention center? Now, it was a great showcase of what our students can do, what interior design along with engineers can do, what they can produce. And we look forward to all the great things that our students, our graduates are going to do in the future. I'd like to welcome our advisory committee, very instrumental in making sure our campus continues its mission along the lines of energy and clean energy, as well as all the areas of engineering that we do so well and have such a great reputation for doing. I'd like to welcome our panelists and certainly congratulate Kent for his award this year as the College of Engineering Alum of the Year. But you're not here to listen to me, you're here to listen about the Great America Energy Challenge, which is perhaps one of the biggest issues in our country and the world today. I think you're going to hear a lot on the presidential circuit about energy, probably more coming between now and November than you probably ever heard about energy in any presidential election year. So thank you all for coming, and thank you for coming to our campus, and thank you for coming to this great event. Welcome, panelists.
Thank you, King. I'm particularly grateful for all the support that our college has had from President Alexander over my tenure, and I know that before me he was instrumental in putting engineering in a really, really great shape. Thank you for all you have done for us. I'd like to thank the Advisory Council, Dean's Advisory Council for the College of Engineering, who initiated this lecture series and have been the greatest supporters for this event. Several members are present here, and if I can ask you to please stand up and be recognized. Members of the Dean's Advisory Council. The subcommittee of the Advisory Council that puts together these lecture series includes Mr. Kent Peterson, to my right, Mr. Mike Nigley, Ms. Susan Fort O'Neill, Mr. Nick Ceramic, and not present today, Mr. Matt Rezvani. We are grateful for the wonderful work that you do putting this together every time. The sponsors for this event, for today's event, are Applied Medical, Edison International, P2S Engineering, Port of Long Beach, San Diego Gas and Electric Pacific, Moffitt and Nichol, Northrop Grumman Corporation, the Boeing Company, Fort Designs, and Technolink Association. Thank you for your support. Thank you for your engagement with us. Appreciate it. So, I have in my hand this publication. I don't expect you to see from way back there, but I assure you, if you look at this, you think it is the latest copy of GQ or the latest catalog of Neiman Marcus or Bloomingdale. No, this is a publication of, I believe, Chamber of Commerce. Is that right? Live Long Beach. And this is the announcement of recognition of two of our greatest alumni, the two brothers, Kevin and Kent Peterson, as Entrepreneurs of the Year. And I had the honor of participating in the event that recognized them today at the Hyatt Regency in Long Beach. So congratulations. Kevin is with us sitting down there, and Kent up here. Congratulations to both of you. And guess who is the moderator today? It is Kent Peterson, and it is my pleasure to introduce him as the chair of the committee, subcommittee organizing this, and also the moderator. Kent is the chief engineer and owner of P2S Engineering, a local consulting engineering firm founded some 20 years ago together with Kevin, of course. He's a recent past president of the American Society of Heating, Refrigeration, and Air Conditioning Engineers, ASHRAE, and he's currently president of the ASHRAE Associate Society Alliance, working with 54 professional societies around the world. Locally, he's the president of the Long Beach Green Business Council, and he has authored many articles and papers and made presentations to government and professionals around the world. He is an ASHRAE Distinguished Lecturer on several topics, and I'm pleased to say that he holds a degree in mechanical engineering from Cal State Long Beach and serves on the Dean's Advisory Council. Please welcome Mr. Kent Peterson.
So the U.S. Energy Challenge, as Dr. King Alexander had said, it's something that's really going to hit us. I mean, it's something that we need to know a little bit more about. We decided to put this lecture together and kind of give you an overview of what's happening. As far as moderating the panel, I wanted to at least give you U.S. Energy 101 and kind of give a perspective at least on where we're at in terms of what our history has been with respect to U.S. energy consumption, our production trends, what's happening, what our forecasts are as we move forward in the future. So first of all, let's talk a little bit about primary energy use in the United States. Now, some of you are engineers. Obviously, this is an engineering lecture. But for those of you who aren't in the energy business, you see up there the term BTU, which is British Thermal Units. It's a unit of energy that we use in the United States that actually measures the amount of energy it takes to heat 1 pound of water, 1 degree Fahrenheit. Now, you'll see up here quadrillion. Quadrillion's a big number. That's 15 zeros. So that comes after trillion. It's 1,000 trillion. So these are the units of measure we're really talking about. Now, if we look from 1950, when we really started into what I call more the Industrial Revolution in the U.S., and we really started manufacturing, or after the wars, you see that our energy consumption actually jumped from about 30 quads up to about 90 quads. Our production in the U.S., meaning using our natural resources that we have here in the U.S., has also increased, but you do see that we actually do have a deficit. We're consuming more than we're actually producing. This is actually energy production by source, And especially if we start looking, well, we start here on the bottom corner, you'll notice that natural gas and coal really are our two primary energy sources that we use in the U.S. as far as what we produce in the U.S. Crude oil is now down to about 12 quads per year, and we're using more than double that on an annual basis. You'll see that on another chart. You'll also kind of see what the historical trends have been since 1950 to 2010, where in 1970 we peaked on crude oil. Now, there was a gentleman back in 1950 when oil really started to be something we pumped out of the ground heavily in the United States in 1950. There was a gentleman back then in 1950 that said he predicted in 1970 we would hit peak oil in the U.S. Hubert was his name. And at the time, the administration, the federal administration, said he was crazy. There was no way we were going to hit peak oil in 1970. Well, what do you see up there on that blue chart? We hit peak oil in 1970. He predicted it, and we actually have hit peak oil, and we've actually been producing less and less. So there is a lot of talk. You'll hear a lot of talk. All we're going to do is drill, drill, drill. Yeah, we can drill, but we're not going to get back to that level. We're never going to get back to that level here in the U.S. So there's going to be some other solutions we're going to talk about today to get us there. This actually goes by energy, primary energy consumption by source, and petroleum is our largest source, with 36 quads per year, natural gas, quick follower with 26 quads per year, coal at 21, nuclear at 8, renewable energy, that's all renewable energy. We take our hydroelectric, we take our wind, we take our solar, we mix it all, our biomass, we take it all together, we basically have about 8 quads per year. And this is, again, what you see the trends over here on the right-hand side. Now, when we start looking at trade, meaning what are we really importing and what that impact is in the U.S., we have to start looking at it. And you'll see that our imports have really grown over the years. Currently sitting at about 30 quads of imports up here, most of it being petroleum being 25 quads. And you see here, even on energy imports, the petroleum is fairly close to that line. The other stuff's kind of noise in the system with other types of things when we start taking our coal and what we import, what we export. It's also kind of important for us to have an understanding of where we use energy in the U.S. There's really 4 primary categories that the United States Energy Information Administration really tracks. It's residential, commercial. So residential being all of our homes, commercial being buildings like this that we're in, and then after that it's industrial, and then transportation. Now when you look at the trends, it's very interesting because we started out when energy was cheap and industrial, it kind of went up very quickly. We weren't very, I want to say, energy efficient in our industrial manufacturing. As we started to get more and more people outside the U.S. competing with the U.S. on manufacturing, we became more and more efficient. We've really improved efficiency in the industrial sector in the United States. There's no question about that. You see that in the leveling out of the industrial energy use. Transportation, we've grown in the amount of automobiles. We continue to grow every year in the U.S. That continues to happen. The CAFE standards are starting to now come into effect. Certainly when gasoline gets over $4 a gallon, people start to look at more efficient vehicles. We're going to see some of that discussed today. It's going to be interesting when we talk about that. But residential and commercial energy continues to go up. So even though our buildings are more efficient than they were 30 years ago, we're plugging much more devices into those buildings. We like our cell phones, our computers, all our electronics. I mean, it makes us a more productive society. So that's why you see that trend continue to go up. As far as consumer price estimates, you can see that the cost of energy really has increased as we've gone on. Retail electricity really is the most expensive energy that we use. And part of that is due to the conversion efficiency of how much energy in versus energy out. Most of our energy plants that we're generating electricity for on the electric grid are wasting the excess heat that comes off that plant. They're just shipping you the actual electricity. Petroleum, while this is the cost it is for the actual petroleum itself, still there's inefficiencies that we're going to discuss regarding how we actually use some of these, and then natural gas. And you kind of see what the trends are here. Natural gas, and this chart actually showed that it was up fairly higher, at least predicted to be. Just an update on that, natural gas is really running about $2 right now per million BTUs, or MMBTUs. So that's really dropped down. Now, what does that mean economically? Well, economically, at least from a petroleum standpoint, this is the fossil fuel imports. It really, in 2008, when we hit the peak, meaning we were $145 a barrel, we were also at the peak at that point in time of our imports of what we were using at that. This is before the recession. We actually exported out $450 billion that year out of the United States to are friends that import to us. Now, we'll look at that friends and family chart in a little bit, but that's a lot of money going out of the U.S. economy to people that sometimes aren't so friendly to us. That number has dropped substantially. Part of it is due to the recession. People have been using less fuel. The other thing is also it's down to $80 a barrel in 2010. It's now climbed back up. It's a little bit higher than that. So there's many things. I'll talk a little bit about what impacts that. So crude oil by fuel still and petroleum products make up the vast majority of all that. Now, how does the U.S. compare to the rest of the world? Well, it's interesting to actually understand the U.S. is about 4.5% of the world's population. So if we look at population first, we have 310 million people in the U.S. Our GDP is $14.87 trillion, and these are 2010 numbers. That actually made up something like 18% of the entire world's GDP. So we are a very productive society. We produce a lot of stuff in the United States and products and things. Now, total energy consumption was at 102 quads. Our total energy production was at 72. So obviously, we were a deficit there with our import. And then when it comes to barrels, I think what's important here is that we were consuming, well, on total energy consumption, we were consuming roughly 22% of the world's energy in 2010. So when you look, and we were at 4.5% of the population. That's one way to look at it. Another way to look at it is, well, it's based on GDP because we're a very productive society. We need energy to actually produce products and things like that. And it's just kind of puts all of this in perspective. Petroleum consumption, probably fairly high. I mean, we're actually pushing 22, 23% on petroleum production, how much we consume is petroleum, as opposed to the entire world out there. So the U.S. uses most of the petroleum. There's no question about that. And then petroleum production, simply down to 10% of the world. We're producing about 10% of the overall world. There's a lot of things that actually affect the price of oil, and the price of oil actually affects the price of gas. They believe it or not, they relate to each other fairly closely. You'll see them a little bit behind each other on the trend charts because of what it takes to actually get the oil into petroleum. But this is showing September 11th, starting back in 2001. What you'll really notice here is that when OPEC actually starts to, in this case, they actually started to run out of capacity on their spare oil production. And then there's certain events. OPEC in February 2007 actually cuts production by 1.4 million barrels per day over 6 months. You notice what's happening. At that point in time, we had a very robust economy around the world. There was a lot of need for energy that was occurring. And OPEC decided they were going to cut production because it's a supply and demand type pricing scheme out there on the open market. And whenever they decide they want to cut production, you'll see the costs start to really skyrocket. Well, this is obviously back in 2008 when everything started to hit the wall. We were starting to go off a cliff economically, and you'll see that the costs went down. Consumption went down at the same time. And then back here in March of 2009, OPEC then cut production again, and you now start to see the price as it starts to go back up again. So we are somewhat at the mercy, if we're going to import, meaning U.S. security, we're a little bit at the mercy of other people that are controlling the price of oil. This just puts it in the perspective of the U.S. trade deficit. Total deficit you'll see here, the bottom line on the yellow, and then you see the petroleum trade deficit, and then the blue line is just simply telling you what percent of our trade deficit is petroleum making up. And so currently, as of 2010, it was about 60% of our total deficit. This is my friends and family curve. These are oil importers, the major, not 9 people, if we were actually take the 9 countries that import, 90% of all of our oil comes from these sources. It's nice that we have friends up in Canada. They're very close. That's kind of convenient. Saudi Arabia is ranked second as far as imports to Nigeria, Venezuela, Mexico, Russia, Algeria, Iraq, and Angola. The OPEC countries that we see up here are actually Saudi Arabia, Nigeria, Venezuela, Algeria, Iraq, and Angola. So the vast majority of these are OPEC countries, meaning that they're part of that agreement that they decide what the price of oil is and what the they're controlling the price of oil by controlling their production on what they're actually going to produce in the world market. Now this just kind of puts a little bit, this is what the Department of Energy is saying going forward, and this is an early release of the 2012 annual energy outlook that they produced. And the nice thing is, when we look up here, while our consumption is increasing, we're actually bridging the gap a little bit here. Our production is also increasing. We are looking at alternative fuels. The renewables, we're going to talk about some of this stuff. Renewables are increasing. Biofuels are also increasing. Efficiency makes a huge difference, and there's a lot of efficiency that's going to be discussed and what impact that's going to have on overall consumption. You also see that natural gas is forecast to even increase on the amount that we're going to be using out of natural gas. And we found a lot more natural gas resources here in the U.S., which makes that a good thing for us. I know CO2, in terms of carbon emissions out there and carbon dioxide equivalent emissions, is something that's important when we start talking about greenhouse gases. This is kind of a projection here as far as what's happening related to carbon emissions as we move forward. This is total emissions for the U.S. in billions of metric tons, and it stays fairly level as we start to move forward. Now, there's other ways to look at this. We don't just look at it as total U.S., but we might look at it as per GDP or per capita, and you'll see that those trends have actually been fairly good. We've been trending down since 1980 on per GDP and per capita, and so that's an indication of efficiency. Not just fuel switching, but actual efficiency is what's been trending that down. And that's my intro to this. I hope that helps sets the stage for our distinguished speakers.
Thanks, Ken. And I want to thank the university for inviting me here today. I spent the first 10 years of my working life living and working here in Long Beach. Spent a lot of time out on the oil islands, a little bit of time on 2nd Street, capped off getting married down there in the shore at St. Bart, so a lot of fond memories here. It's great to be back. Let me tell you a little bit about BP before we get started. BP is the largest investor in U.S. energy, $52 billion over the last 5 years. We have 23,000 employees in the U.S. and support over 200,000 more with our contractors and suppliers. And though we're a global company, we invest more in the U.S. than any other company that we operate. And that includes significant investment in alternative energy, about $7 billion since 2005. And I do see some students here today, so I wanted to let you know the average salary and benefits of a BP employee is about twice that of the national average, and we hired 3,000 employees last year in the U.S. Look to hire a lot more this year. Now is a good time to go into the oil business if you've got the right skills and the desire, especially if you're a geologist or an engineer. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the energy landscape, what's happening, and why. First, the global picture. A few things you can take away from these charts here. First, the demand for energy is increasing, and it's increasing rapidly. This is our view of what's going to happen between now and 2030. About a 40% increase in the demand for energy. But that demand pattern is shifting. You're seeing almost all that increased demand coming from developing countries like India and China, and the demand from the developed countries is essentially flat. A lot of people are hoping to see that increased demand met by a move to renewables. And one day that time will come, but that day is still a long way off. You can see by the chart on the right, in 2030, by far the bulk of our demand for energy will be met, continue to be met by fossil fuels. So I guess the takeaways from that slide is 39% growth in energy, so we'll need more energy, not less, over the next 20 years. 96% of that comes from developing countries. In the developed countries, only 4% increase in growth in energy demand. And as we see the fuel mix shift, it's going to shift away from coal and oil into things like renewables and natural gas. This sort of sums up the global outlook. A few things you look at here: rapidly growing GDP, and really that's what's contributing, that and population growth is what's contributing to the increased energy demand. Right now you have about a quarter of the world's population that has no access to modern energy. And as those folks move into the middle class, they're buying cars, air conditioners, refrigerators, and that requires more energy. You can see, though, that the energy doesn't rise as quickly as GDP, and that's because the world is getting much more efficient in their use of energy. One consequence is that CO2 emissions continue to rise, so in our view, we're not on track to meet the CO2 emissions that are required to avert climate change. Let's take a look at the U.S. picture, and in a lot of ways this is a lot more positive. Kent alluded to some of this. Our energy consumption, in our view, is actually going to fall over the next 18 or so years, about 2%. And our energy production is going to rise. So what's supposed to go up is going up, and what's supposed to go down is going down. And that means that we will be producing about 94% of our energy by 2030 in our view, as opposed to 77% today. So energy independence, as people call it sometimes, is in the view. As far as the fuel mix, large declines in oil use, 24% reduction, 22% reduction in coal, and that's offset by large growth in natural gas use and renewables. Renewables up 263%. We think we'll be cutting our net oil imports by about half by 2030, and our share of the global energy consumption falls from about 19% to 13%. I know a lot of people are concerned about that. Kent alluded to it. I guess we're only 2% of the world's population, but as he mentioned, we also produce a lot of the world's GDP, more than that 19%. By 2030, we see the oil share of the transport sector fall from a near monopoly of 95% to about 83%, met virtually all by biofuels. We see the share of the U.S. energy coming from renewables, which we consider wind and solar, rising from 3% to 10%. So if you look back up to a 263% rise in renewables, that's from a very small base. So even in 2030, we are still seeing only about 10% coming from renewables. By 2030, we see fossil fuels accounting for about 78% of our total energy demand. So still, fossil fuels will provide the bulk of energy supply. In the U.S., we do see carbon policy now and into the future a driver of efficiency and of emission reductions, CO2 emissions. We do see CO2 emissions falling in the U.S. slightly, which is the difference than the global view. This is a fairly positive picture, but it's not to say that hard choices in our policy around energy remain. A little bit about natural gas. I think probably most of you are too young to remember the movie The Graduate when the term was plastics. I think the new term or phrase is going to be natural gas. It's really hard to overstate the sort of turnaround and the significance of the turnaround in the supply-demand balance for natural gas. Huge breakthroughs in technology have greatly increased our domestic supply and lowered price. We see our natural gas production rising by 30% by 2030, and the U.S. becoming self-sufficient in natural gas. Will remain the largest supplier and producer of natural gas in the world. By 2030, we see natural gas replacing oil as a leading fuel. And we're seeing right now a huge cost advantage in natural gas to Europe because natural gas isn't as easy to transport as oil, so it's not a global commodity per se. Like Ken said, it's about $2 per MCF here, about 5 times that in Europe. Seeing a lot of fuel switching to natural gas, resulting in reduced greenhouse gas emissions, and there's been articles recently about it producing a manufacturing renaissance in the U.S. because of that reduced price and advantaged places like Europe. So a real game changer. Wanted to talk a little bit about transportation. This is our view of globally of what's going to happen in transportation. On the left there, you see number of vehicles, again, rapidly increasing, again, mostly in the developing world, by about 60% to 1.6 billion vehicles by 2030. On the right is interesting because you see where this growth is coming. The U.S. currently has about almost 800 vehicles per 1,000 people. India is about 20 vehicles per 1,000, and China about 40. So a lot of room for growth there. This is what sort of energy makes up the supply in the transport world. Again, even more so dominated by fossil fuels. And we see that as continuing out to 2030. You can see on the right there, though, that even though fossil fuels makes up the bulk of the supply, efficiency is increasing greatly. So we're having to use less energy to get a certain amount of mileage. Over the next 15 years or so, the efficiency of U.S. vehicles is slated to about double. So when we talk about what are going to be technologies of the future in transportation, this is our view of 4 main technologies that we expect to see. First is the conventional gasoline engine getting much more efficient and using efficient biofuels. The y-axis is increasing emissions, so going down is getting decreased emissions. The x-axis is increasing base cost, so sort of a reference cost increase. That's in euros because that's what I could get from my London colleagues. But it's really important just to see the relative change. So for a relatively small amount of money, you can get a fair amount of increase just in the conventional gasoline engine. We also see diesel playing a similar role with a small amount of extra cost for more efficiency. But this is where we really see the big gains in hybridization of these engines to increase the efficiency. Both in the gasoline and diesel side. And then on the right there, you see battery electric vehicles. You hear a lot of talk about this. The environmental benefit of these vehicles really depends on the source of energy that's used to charge them. If you get that electricity from coal, it's comparable to an internal combustion engine on gasoline. From renewables like hydro or wind or solar or nuclear or fossil fuel using carbon capture and storage, you get a lot of environmental benefit. But what remains is a huge price differential, something like $12,000 to $14,000. And that's going to be hard to overcome for many people for a lot of years to come, as far as we can see. So based on what we saw, this is what we think the 2030 vehicle pool is going to look like. On the left there, conventional vehicles displaced to a wide degree by hybridization. The small amount of plug-ins and battery electric vehicles. And in 2030, this is what we expect the fleet to look like. 69% conventional vehicles, significant contributions from hybrids, and still a pretty small amount from battery electric vehicles and other non-liquid forms of energy. Kent alluded to this too. We see efficiency having the biggest impact on oil demand. If you look at the first green bar on the left there, that's the current demand for energy in the transportation sector. If you were to add the increased number of vehicles and the proportional share of energy based on today's use, the energy use would increase greatly. But that's not what we see happening. We see reductions from giving consumers choices rather than getting in their car, so reduced use of their vehicle. In the blue, you see the reductions in fuel use coming from efficiency. That's by far the biggest wedge. Displacement of gasoline from other fuels, mostly biofuels, but some of the others begin to play as well. And that results in only about a 26% or so increase in fuel use to go along with those extra vehicles. So in conclusion, on the transportation sector, we see vehicle counts growing rapidly on a global scale. Again, a key message, oil will remain the dominant energy source in the transportation sector for decades to come. Much more efficient vehicles and hybridization reduce fuel demand. We see advanced biofuels as the key to reducing carbon emissions and displacing oil in the transport sector. The other fuels, the non-liquid fuels, electricity, the hydrogen fuel cell vehicles, potentially natural gas, begin to grow after 2030, but still face significant hurdles such as battery and vehicle costs. And lastly, in addition to the energy efficiency that displacing with new fuels, we think that demand management has a big role to play. And again, that's all I have. Thank you for having me here today.
Thank you, Ralph. Our next speaker is Gabe Canto. He's the Integrated Subsystems Program Manager at Northrop Grumman Aerospace Systems. He has 30 years of experience in the aerospace industry. In his position in the Technology Development Department at Northrop Grumman, he and his team are responsible for research and development of systems for next-generation air vehicles and chartered to optimize energy efficiency by enabling lower fuel consumption. His past experience spans military air vehicles, holding positions in support of subsystems and propulsion integration on the FA-18, the B-2 bomber, the YF-23 Advanced Tactical Fighter, and the B-1B bomber. Mr. Canto holds a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering from the University of California, Irvine. Please welcome Mr. Canto.
Well, thank you, Kent. Well, I'm going to try to give you a perspective from the defense industry. And I think the goal of energy independence is to use less foreign oil by either producing more oil domestically, producing or using alternative fuels, or consuming less energy overall. Foreign oil independence is a challenging goal. But it's something we must address because of national security. And when I say national security, what I'm talking about is disruption of our oil supply can be catastrophic to our society. And we've all seen on the Middle East, tensions in the Middle East causing problems with our oil supply. We've seen problems in Syria, Libya, Iraq, Iran. It's not a problem that we want to really get into. Also, the world right now is changing. There's growing world powers out there, like China, who has a major demand on oil. And if for some reason there's a conflict with China and our oil-producing countries, that could cause a serious, serious problem with us. How would the U.S. respond in a situation like that? That's a security issue. However, anything we do needs to be balanced with our environment and with our health and with our economic stability. So the defense industry, and especially the aviation industry, who uses a lot of energy, is focused on technology development and using alternative fuels and developing those for aviation and using technologies to enhance energy efficiency across the board. And hopefully, those industries or these technologies will go into other segments of our society. Kent did a real good job of showing you a bunch of charts. I'm just going to show you the color pictures of the charts. You know, North America over there shows that we produce about 11 million barrels per day of oil. The rest of the world produces a lot more. And what we've been producing, Kent was right. It's been stable. The chart on the bottom down there shows that's about all the oil that we're going to produce. So just going out and drilling is not a good solution. So why don't we just drill more? Well, first of all, the U.S. only has about 2% of the oil reserves. Also, our oil reserves are offshore or in places that we really don't want to drill, like Alaska's Arctic Natural Wildlife Reserve, otherwise known as ANWR. We don't want to do that. And also, when we drill for oil, it costs us more. It's actually cheaper for us to buy oil from somewhere else. So our strategy for global security has been, let's just maintain mutually beneficial relationship with all these countries. And actually, it hasn't been such a bad issue because essentially we do this in a lot of other areas outside of energy. One other thing about economic stability is, what happens if we do become independent? So what will happen to the supply of oil around the world? Those people have more supply. Supply causes costs to go down. So we pay more. Other countries pay less. Our goods cost more to produce. Economic stability has issues. Kent shows these kind of charts too, and essentially that big circle over there shows that this is how much the U.S. oil uses every year. That circle over there shows that the U.S. produces about only half of the oil we produce. And the trend line on the right-hand side shows that we are continuously increasing. What it tells me is that we need to cap that. We need to bring it back down. Because currently, the U.S. imports about 9 million barrels per day and consumes about 19 million barrels per day. And that is a major domestic oil challenge. It's not something that's just going to happen with just alternative fuels. Well, what's the defense industry doing? Alternative jet fuels is the Air Force's solution. They said, well, let's invest, because we're such a large consumer of jet fuel, let's invest and let's make jet fuel out of coal and petroleum mixes using an old process that was used many, many years ago, even by the Germans during World War II, the Fischer-Tropsch process. That works. They've certified that they can manufacture drop-in replacement fuels right in Air Force airplanes. The problem? It also produces twice as many air pollutants as normal refinery. So what's the Navy do? The Navy goes and says, let's use waste cooking oil, mix it with algae oil, mix it with petroleum, and make jet fuels for that. So the defense industry is working on technology development for aviation. The Navy's gone ahead and they call their plan the Great Green Fleet. They're purchasing now 450,000 gallons of biofuel made from waste cooking oil that I think they get from like Tyson or some of the chicken manufacturers. And they're mixing it with algae, and they've actually flown it in the Blue Angels. And they've shown that it works. And this, they think that's going to protect against spikes in fuel costs. And this Great Green Fleet is going to sail in 2016. The only issue is that it costs about $26.75 a gallon to make that oil, where normal jet fuel is around 3 gallons an oil. Energy solutions for aviation means that we need to think outside the box. We need to be innovative. That's what engineers are trained to do, and this is the kind of things that we're looking at Northrop Grumman. Next generation aerodynamic vehicles need to have innovative shapes, because if you implement low drag laminar flow wings, they have less drag, less fuel consumption. Lightweight composite structures means that you're pushing around less weight. Energy optimized flight profiles. Let's make sure that we fly the right altitudes, that we fly smartly. Integrated systems so that we're not just using and burning oil where we don't need to be. The Air Force has a program called the Advent engine that is a high efficiency propulsion engine. Their thought was, how about making engines that are adaptable? Let's put some smarts in these engines. Currently, we design fast engines for jets, but then when they go fly for long distance, they're not very fuel efficient. So can we, and they have, made adaptable engines that have a lot of power for takeoff, but then alter themselves, vary themselves, so that they perform more like a commercial airplane. We talked about domestic fuels. There's technologies going in there to build alternative fuels, but we have to be smart. We can't just say we're going to make a bunch of fuel out of our corn. Non-food and non-feed is what the customer wants, or what the government wants. And it has to have a lower footprint. Here's a thought. This is our proposed airplane that we said, NASA, you may want to consider doing this. Making a cargo airplane so that it doesn't impact your airport structures, but it has all the technologies. Let's think outside the box. As engineers, let's make things that are a little bit more fuel efficient. And efficiency means adaptable engines, like we talked about on the Advent, but adaptable in many ways. We have the computing capabilities. Let's work on materials and other things to make these things work on a various range. Lightweight composite structures reduce fuel consumption. But however, we're still right now developing how do you make composites, how to manufacture them smartly, how to manufacture them financially, economically. That's an important focus of ours. And also NASA even put together a software program that helps the airlines save fuel by calculating what is airplanes that are smart, that are easily produced, and so that we actually produce more efficient systems. And that's essentially my pitch. Energy independence, one of the key things that we should focus on is technology development. Technologies on using alternative fuels, technologies on making things more efficient, but making sure that we balance it with environment, health, and economic stability. I wanted to, think of something. What is the solutions? I made a bunch of problems. And perhaps, as engineers, we need to start thinking a little bit further outside the box. If transportation is our problem, then why did we drive here today? Maybe we just need to cut back on transportation and use technology to make us feel like we were here and virtually be here. Just thought, but that's for you engineers to figure it out. Thanks.
Thank you, Gabe. Our final speaker today will be Greg Wolfson. He's a Senior Vice President and Chief Technology Officer at PsomasFMG. An innovative business and engineering strategist, Greg has more than 20 years of experience in the solar and electronics industries. In his role as Chief Technology Officer at PsomasFMG, he has ultimate responsibility for ensuring that the solar system designs meet project expectations for energy production, client energy savings, functionality, and aesthetics, as well as operational requirements. He also leads the new technology evaluation team and oversees the selection of vendor equipment, balance of systems, and performance monitoring systems. Mr. Wolfson holds an MBA in technology marketing and entrepreneurship from the University of California, Berkeley, and his Bachelor of Science in Electrical Engineering in Microprocessor Applications from the University of Pennsylvania. Please welcome Greg Wolfson.
Thanks, Kent, very much for the introduction. And I very much appreciate the opportunity to speak with you all today. In fact, I was just commenting to Kent that I hadn't had the opportunity really to visit on your campus. You have a beautiful campus. And furthermore, I just reflected upon the fact that I don't think I've ever been inside a pyramid before. So I'm going to try to resonate with the harmonic energy that supposedly pyramids give us to give my presentation on energy. Before I begin my comments, my prepared remarks, we have a short video montage that gives you a sense of what PsomasFMG is all about and distributed energy, and I thought I'd show that to you now. The agenda that I've laid out is to first talk a little bit about the energy market. Much has been said in Kent's opening remarks, and Gabe followed on with that. So I'll only touch on that briefly. Talk a little bit about distributed generation, and then introduce the concept of energy storage, which I believe, and I think many others, will provide a great solution to some of the problems facing the grid and balancing generation and consumption. The illustration here to start off gives you just an overview, schematic if you will, of what the an electrical grid would look like. And as you can see on the upper portion of the illustration, those are traditional centralized sources, which include both fossil fuel as well as renewable energy sources. The point being that both renewable energy as well as traditional sources of energy can provide centralized generation resources, which are then transported, the energy is transported through the grid, through a transmission system, maybe many hundreds of miles to where it's actually consumed through a distribution network in homes, factories, and businesses, universities. And we're also illustrating in this diagram how distributed generation plays a role by putting the generation source, and that's illustrated on the rooftop of that residence, at the point where it's consumed. And in there lies the role that distributed generation can play. Let's first talk a little bit about the markets, and I'm going to focus on the photovoltaic market, the solar market, because that's the nature of what SomasFMG does. As Kent alluded to, and it was repeated many times, solar energy right now plays a very small role in producing the energy that's consumed both in the U.S. and worldwide. It's less than 1% at this point. But the two graphs that I have illustrated here show you what's happened over the past decade. And as you can see, the average installation price of PV has dropped dramatically over the past 10 years, really over 50% from what was about $10 per watt installation cost back a decade ago to really under $4 a watt as we're installing projects today. And that has led to what you see in the other graph, which is this really rapid increase, dramatic acceleration of deployment of photovoltaic installations, solar installations in the United States, and this is happening worldwide as well. One thing I would point out, which is a special note, since we are in California, California is the leading state, shouldn't be any surprise to anybody, we're the Golden State, but we're the leading state of solar energy deployment. Our share has actually decreased a little bit with some of the East Coast states, especially New Jersey, coming online, but we still are the lion's share by far of solar energy consumption and use. And really, California is looked to be as a leader, a trendsetter, and really the whole world looks to the California market to see where we're going. Let's dive a little bit deeper and talk about electricity generation and consumption. And this is from the California Energy Commission, a very recent report in the December of 2011. California Energy Commission is responsible for keeping their eye on all things energy in the state. So I've used their information to really give us a glimpse on what they project is going to occur in terms of electric energy consumption and demand. And you can see in both of those charts, the first being consumption, the second being demand, you can see that once we get over this little recession that we've had, the balance of the decade is projected to be growth in both consumption and demand, just as it was in the prior decade. This large increase in both consumption and demand for electric energy in the state will put great stress on the ability for the state to provide those resources to folks who need electricity. And that's going to be made up by many, many different solutions, one of which has been mentioned in prior conversations, prior discussion, being natural gas. And I think our view is that natural gas is a critical component and will play an even larger role in the mix of fuels. But I think that the one thing that we look at when we take a look at the picture is the fact that although that today the spot price of natural gas is very low, as was mentioned, under the $2 mark, we feel that over time, really in the next couple of years, it's going to return to a more historically normal range of pricing because of the fact that, well, for one part, much of the need for energy will be serviced by natural gas, creating a huge demand on natural gas. But also there are some environmental considerations, concerns about water quality, from the new fracking methods that will have to be overcome. And also in our state, we have some unique requirements for the upgrade of the pipeline and the infrastructure for natural gas, which has been estimated to be in excess of $2 billion. So natural gas will play a very big role, very, very important. I'm not so sure that it's the panacea that some have alluded to. So given that all of those dynamics are occurring, what does the California Energy Commission project in terms of the renewable energy forecast? Because that's the world that I live in, which is the segment of fuels that are coming from renewable sources. And I'm introducing here the Renewable Portfolio Standard. Actually, I got this from Kent. I appreciate that, Kent, the little clip at the bottom defining Renewable Portfolio Standard. Basically, it's a mandate by the state that a certain proportion of the utilities generation note of is the fact that the California RPS and the way it's being implemented really favors distributed generation. We are doing a pretty good job right now. The portfolio standard outlines 33% in 2020. Currently, we get about 16% in California of our energy from renewable energy sources, about 10 gigawatts. By 2020, it's estimated that approximately 15 gigawatts of traditional fossil fuel generation sources will have to be retired, including 2 gigawatts of coal-fired generation, which certainly wouldn't be brought back into the state. This means that we're going to have to find great additional resources to bring online to make up for that. And there is estimated a potential, this is kind of a wild number, but 18 million megawatts of potential renewable energy sources that can be developed in the state. So the potential is there, and the question is how are we going to get there? Well, if you look at Governor Brown's Clean Energy Job Plan that was released last year, there's the target to hit 20 gigawatts or 20,000 megawatts of renewable energy capacity by 2020 to hit the 33% portfolio standard. Of that, 12,000 megawatts or 12 gigawatts should be distributed renewable energy generation or distributed generation. So there's a big policy focus on distributed generation. And what I want to spend the balance of my remarks is on what is distributed generation and how does that differ from the traditional ways of generating energy and distributing it. What we're seeing in the United States is somewhat of a transition, or at least in some segments, a rethinking of how energy should be generated and transported and delivered to the load. If you look at the way in the past century, it's kind of hard to use that, the 20th century, the prior century, the way in which energy generation was thought of, it was very much build it big, burn it large, and you're going to get the lowest cost per unit of energy. The economies of scales drove that. Inexpensive fuels meant that the incremental consumption of fuel was even less expensive. And there was really very little constraints on developing capacity, developing transmission grids, and that really provided for this type of a model. However, this century, things are not the same. In some ways, many things have been turned upside down. The concept of decreasing marginal costs are now turned up to really increasing marginal costs. It all started back in the 1970s with the landmark air regulation quality standards being put in place, and that's more and more costs have been laid on that model, escalating costs for building very large traditional power generation plants or nuclear plants, all sorts of environmental regulations on greenhouse gases and other gases, and lots of concerns about land use and concerns about how to build in the transmission infrastructure that's going to move this centralized point source of energy to where it's being consumed. And also, not to be left out, I think in Gabe's remarks, he mentioned the concerns about stability or reliability or security of our energy grid. And when you have a situation where you have point sources of all the energy generation being transported across a very large and complex electricity grid, that opens you up to susceptibility of natural and man-made disasters. How many here remember the summer of 2000 when we had brownouts? Show of hands. Is that something that's faded into people's? No, okay. Well, as a personal note, I will say that that was a landmark for me. I was in the Silicon Valley selling very, very sophisticated semiconductor components. My problem was I couldn't find conference rooms that had power. We had to run to where the backup power in these very fancy, high-tech campuses, wherever we could have a conference, because that was the day when the brownout was happening or there wasn't power in that facility. And I scratched my head and I said, here we are in the center of technology in the world, and we can't even get enough electricity to run a projector. And that really made me think about, well, what's going on here? That was really something for me, a watershed. This is an illustration of the differences between central and distributed generation. On the one side, you have the traditional model we talked about, centralized point sources of generation. It could be fossil fuel, it could be renewable energy. They are being put under the grid and then distributed to the locations where the load exists. On the other side, you see where various sources of energy generation are associated and proximal to the area where the load is, where the energy is consumed. And as I mentioned earlier, this has a lot of benefits. First and foremost, the little graphic over there explains that you don't lose to transmission the natural energy loss that occurs whenever you try to move energy through great distances. You also don't have to put in the infrastructure, the very large bill that's coming due on upgrading our transmission infrastructure. And it makes a more reliable and better match to the load that it's trying to support. That sounds pretty good. In fact, the Brookings Institute and the Hoover Institute, which are not really birds of the same feather politically, found common ground enough to publish a report last year that highlighted these very same points. And I've captured a couple snippets from that report. If you go online, you can find it. But it goes on to say that really distributed generation can really provide the efficiency, the resiliency, reliability, the better match to the local consumption. So I think there's a broad agreement that there's a good role for distributed generation. However, just having distributed generation doesn't really solve all of the problem. There's still an issue that when you have a distributed generation source, certainly a renewable energy source, which is not dispatchable, meaning you can't turn it on and off like a coal-fired plant, you don't necessarily have a good match with how the energy will be consumed. On this chart in pink, you see California's traditional summer daily consumption or demand for energy. See, it starts in the early morning there, starts to grow, really peaks in the very, very end of the day, and is still fairly high in the evening. The black curve there indicates the energy production from a solar facility. You can see it's close, but it's not quite there, in that the highest energy demand is really after the sun is setting. So the question is, what can you do to try to solve that problem? Well, if you could just shift that energy by a few hours, you could make a marked difference in terms of matching that up. And that's why storage is seen to be the holy grail. Or as I've said it, it's the grid's missing link. And I've reflected here, or I've indicated here, locations where storage is thought to be very applicable or possible. I'm using the icon of a battery. It's not always a battery. It's some form of storage. There's many forms of storage. But the concept is that integrating storage in various points in the grid, either associated with the generating a location like in the upper left-hand side or within the facilities that are using the energy to balance out the load, really will enable the unleashing the full potential for a distributed generation solution. The graph up there to the right indicates a fairly rapid projection of what the storage market will look like. So the question is, what are going to be the technologies that are going to fill this need? And the answer is lots of different ones. This is a graphic that I took from the Energy Storage Association. You can see the same information on NREL or other federal agency sites depicting all sorts of different storage technologies, different ranges where they're more optimal, where they work. Up in the very right-hand corner, you see the PSH, that's pumped hydro. Basically pumping water behind a dam so that at some later point in time you can run that backwards. Works really great if you've got a big dam. It doesn't really work very well if you want to do something in your home. But there's a wide variety of different technologies, many battery technologies. I put over here, just to finish my remarks, a little electric vehicle. How many folks here have had the opportunity to ride in an electric vehicle, hybrid or otherwise? A good number, good number. So I think that as the comments that were made earlier, hybrid vehicles or all electric vehicles are going to play a very big role in our transportation network moving forward. There's a concept out there called vehicle to grid, where you take an electric vehicle and you use it as a mobile storage. At night, you plug it in, and you pull down from the grid that very cheap nighttime energy stored into your car. Then during the day, you drive it to your workplace, plug it into your workplace, and if they have a renewable energy source, you're able to store that energy and make better use of it. The other thing that it does is it will drive, because of the volume of vehicles, that technology to be much more readily available, much more cost-effective, and more safe for the use for general storage technology. And I know I've just got back from a trip from Asia, and all of the battery manufacturers in Asia are thinking the same way. So I think that there is a bit of a convergence here where we have a use case that will drive the technology of battery technology forward. That's the remarks I had prepared for today, and look forward to answering any of your questions. Thank you so much.
Even though we have the technology today. Great. Let me just wrap it up. It sounds like we have energy efficiency is one of the great alternatives as we move forward in the United States. I mean, one of the best things we can do is make things more efficient and use our energy more efficiently, whether it's the end consumption or whether it's even the conversion of the energy type to electricity. We have areas that we can improve in the U.S. to reduce our consumption through energy efficiency. We're going to be looking at a lot of different renewable sources as we start to move forward. And certainly it was alluded to that biofuels are a good alternative, but we got to make sure we understand what the economic externalities are when we make these decisions. Some of the decisions that were made on the federal level to incentivize corn being used for biofuel, not a good idea when you start looking at what the externalities are to the world price of corn or any type of other staples that we had. Flour even went up, believe it or not, substantially when we did that type of thing. So it's always important, if we're going to hear these things in the upcoming elections and the debates, to start to think about what is the externality. I mean, if they're saying they're going to spend all this money doing this, what's the ramification of that? And that they might not be talking about. They may strictly be talking about on an energy level, but there could be other ramifications. We got to keep that in mind. I'd like to thank again our distinguished speakers. I think it was a great panel this afternoon. Just to let you know, if you haven't been to one of these before, the PDFs of the slides will be available on the College of Engineering website. And our next lecture is scheduled for October 25th, 2012. And I think... Okay, that's fine. But our next lecture is October 25th, 2012. So keep in mind that late October we'll be having our next lecture. I'd like to welcome Dean Golshani back up to the podium.
Thank you. Stimulating, enjoyable, and informative. Appreciate the thoughts. This is actually what Kent was referring to, the date of next slide, and I have something else to say about this. We have just small gifts as a token of our appreciation for the participants, panelists. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kent has one of those big boxes, so he gets a small box.
Thank you.
And again, thank you. I'd like, if you opened your program to this page, I'd like to draw your attention to the page opposite, which identifies those who work to put this together. And there's a group that rarely gets mentioned, and they work really, really hard to bring this about. First and foremost, Jenny, our Director of Development, and Nikki all the way in the back, who's joined our college just recently, and she was brave enough to drag her husband to help today as well. Thank you. And also Mike, Ken, and Kim. Many of you don't see Ken, but he has been helping push this along all day. Anyway, thanks to my staff and to everyone who has helped, and looking forward to seeing you October 25, that's a Thursday, in fall semester. Thank you.